Rogue's power absorption. Rogue from the X-Men possesses one of the most devastating powers in Marvel's mutant roster, not because of what it does to enemies, but because of what it does to her. When she touches someone skin to skin, she absorbs their memories, abilities, personality traits, and in the case of other mutants, their powers. The absorption is involuntary and uncontrollable, which means Rogue can never touch another human being without potentially killing them or fragmenting her own identity with their consciousness. Her first kiss with a boy named Cody put him in a coma for weeks. When she accidentally absorbed Carol Danvers' powers and psyche, Carol's personality remained trapped in Rogue's mind for years, creating a split consciousness where Rogue had to fight for control of her own thoughts. The cost of Rogue's power is complete physical isolation. She can never hold hands with a loved one, never embrace her parents, never experience the most basic human intimacy without risking their life and her sanity. Every relationship in her life is mediated through gloves, long sleeves, and distance. Gambit, the love of her life, can only touch her when she's wearing protective clothing or when narrative convenience temporarily suppresses her powers. The tragedy is that her ability to absorb powers makes her one of the strongest X-Men when needed, capable of channeling multiple abilities simultaneously. But that strength comes at the cost of the thing that makes life worth living for most people: genuine human connection. She's surrounded by people but fundamentally alone, powerful but perpetually isolated, a living reminder that some gifts are indistinguishable from curses. By the way, if you like content analyzing superhero powers and their hidden costs, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thank you very much. The Flash's Speed Force aging. The Flash can run faster than light, vibrate through solid matter, travel through time, and perceive events in attoseconds. But the Speed Force that grants these abilities extracts a price that most fans don't consider. When Barry Allen or Wally West runs at top speed, they don't just move fast, they experience time differently. What feels like hours to a speedster might be seconds in real time, which means their subjective lifespan extends far beyond their chronological age. Wally West described watching his wife Linda and their children age while he remained relatively young, because the cumulative time he spent in accelerated perception added decades to his experienced life. But the more insidious cost is what speed does to a speedster's relationship with normal time. Barry Allen struggles to have conversations because people speak so slowly that waiting for them to finish a sentence feels like hours. He can't enjoy meals because his metabolism burns through food so quickly that eating becomes a constant requirement rather than pleasure. He can't watch movies or read books at normal speed without excruciating boredom. His entire life is either agonizingly slow when interacting with normal people or dangerously fast when using his powers. The Flash also deals with the psychological burden of being able to prevent nearly any tragedy if he's aware of it, which creates impossible moral calculus. When he runs fast enough to time travel, he risks creating paradoxes, alternate timelines, and causal loops that can erase people from existence. Flashpoint showed what happens when Barry tries to fix the past. He accidentally erased his own timeline and created a world where millions died in a war between Atlantis and Themyscira. The Speed Force grants godlike power, but traps its users in a perception of reality so divorced from normal human experience that they become functionally alienated from the people they're trying to protect. Cyclops' uncontrollable optic blasts. Scott Summers, Cyclops of the X-Men, fires concussive force beams from his eyes, powerful enough to demolish buildings and puncture steel, but he can never turn them off. Due to brain damage from a childhood plane crash, Cyclops lost the ability to control his optic blasts consciously, which means his eyes are constantly emitting destructive force. The only thing preventing him from destroying everything he looks at is a visor made of ruby quartz, the one material that can contain his power. This creates a life of complete visual dependency on technology. If his visor is damaged or removed, even accidentally, he becomes a threat to everyone around him. He's been blinded in fights and immediately devastated the surrounding area because he couldn't stop the beams. He can never see the world with his natural eyes, never see colors as they truly are since everything is filtered through ruby quartz, never wake up next to Jean Grey or Emma Frost and simply look at them without the mediating technology that keeps them safe from him. His entire visual experience of reality is artificial, processed through a device that could malfunction or be destroyed at any moment. The psychological cost is profound. Cyclops knows that his mere existence is dangerous, that looking at someone he loves could kill them if his equipment fails. When he was possessed by the Phoenix Force and killed Professor Xavier, it confirmed his deepest fear that his power makes him fundamentally dangerous, a weapon that can't be safely stored. His leadership of the X-Men is partially compensation for the guilt of knowing that he's one equipment failure away from mass casualties. He can't even close his eyes and rest without the visor because the beams emit constantly, penetrating his eyelids. Sleep requires the visor or specialized contact lenses. His power doesn't grant him vision or enhance his sight. It blinds him behind ruby quartz and makes every glance a potential tragedy. Martian Manhunter's fire vulnerability. John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, possesses nearly every power Superman has: telepathy that rivals Professor X, shapeshifting that surpasses Mystique, intangibility, invisibility, and regeneration, making him arguably the most powerful member of the Justice League. But fire, even a small flame, causes him complete psychological and physical breakdown. This isn't just vulnerability, it's a phobia so severe that exposure to fire shuts down his other abilities and sends him into catatonic terror. The reason is trauma. John watched his entire species, including his wife and daughter, burn to death in a psychic plague that made Martians spontaneously combust. He felt their deaths telepathically, experienced their agony as his own, and the trauma-embedded fire as an existential threat into his psyche. This means villains who discover his weakness can neutralize one of Earth's strongest defenders with a lighter. In multiple storylines, enemies have defeated John by simply setting fires around him, and his mind regresses to the moment of his family's death, replaying their screams while he's paralyzed with fear. The cost of his power isn't physical, it's that his abilities are gated behind PTSD so severe that a common element renders him helpless. He's also a telepath who experiences other people's thoughts and emotions constantly, which means he's perpetually aware of humanity's violence, hatred, and cruelty. He hears the worst impulses of everyone around him while trying to protect them, and he does it while carrying the grief of being the last survivor of an entire planetary civilization. His shapeshifting lets him look human, but it's a disguise that reminds him daily that he doesn't belong, that everyone he loved is dead, and that the one thing that could kill him, fire, is everywhere on Earth. John's power makes him nearly invincible, except against the one thing that symbolizes his greatest trauma, which means he lives in constant awareness that his strength is built on a foundation of unhealed wounds. The Hulk's radiation poisoning. Bruce Banner transforms into the Hulk when angry, gaining strength that increases proportionally with rage, making him potentially limitless in power. But the gamma radiation that created the Hulk is constantly poisoning Bruce. He's essentially a walking nuclear reactor, emitting radiation that harms everyone around him. In some storylines, prolonged exposure to Bruce causes cancer in people close to him. Betty Ross developed radiation-related illnesses. The Hulk's body processes gamma radiation, but Bruce's human form is still contaminated, which means even when he's not transformed, he's dangerous to be near. The transformation itself is agony. Bones breaking and reforming, muscles tearing and regenerating, skin stretching beyond human limits. Bruce describes it as dying and being resurrected in seconds, a process so painful that the Hulk's rage is partially just response to the constant pain of existing. But the greater cost is what the Hulk does when unleashed. Bruce has no control over the Hulk's actions in most continuities, which means every transformation risks civilian casualties. The Hulk has destroyed cities, killed innocent people during rampages, and caused billions in property damage. Bruce carries the guilt for all of it, knowing that his anger, something every human experiences, turns him into a monster that ruins lives. He can't have relationships because getting upset during an argument could trigger transformation. He can't have children because they might inherit his condition. He's hunted by governments who rightfully see him as a threat, forcing him to live in isolation. The Hulk represents ultimate physical power, but Bruce experiences it as a curse that's destroyed his career, his relationships, and his ability to live a normal life. Every time he transforms, he risks hurting people he loves, and every time he doesn't transform when needed, people die because he wasn't there to protect them. The Hulk makes Bruce powerful, but ensures he'll never have peace. Wonder Woman's truth compulsion. Diana Prince wields the lasso of truth, which compels anyone bound by it to speak only truth. But what most people don't realize is that as champion of truth, Diana herself cannot lie. In many continuities, her connection to the lasso and her oath to the gods means deception is antithetical to her nature. She can omit information or remain silent, but she cannot speak falsehoods without severe consequences, sometimes physical pain, sometimes loss of her powers, sometimes divine punishment from the gods who granted her abilities. This creates impossible situations in a world where heroism often requires deception. She can't go undercover without revealing herself. She can't comfort someone with a gentle lie. She can't tell a dying person everything will be okay if she knows it won't. When Steve Trevor asks if she loves him, she must answer honestly even if the truth is complicated or hurtful. Her compulsion toward truth makes her incapable of the small social deceptions that make human interaction manageable. She's also a warrior from a culture that values honor and direct confrontation, which means her truth-bound nature often puts her at odds with Batman's strategic deception and Superman's secret identity. She can't understand why they lie to protect people, because lying is existentially unavailable to her. The cost is that Diana lives in a world where everyone else can bend truth for mercy, strategy, or kindness, but she must always speak plainly, even when truth causes harm. Her enemy Maxwell Lord exploited this, asking her questions while under the lasso that forced her to admit things she would have preferred to keep private. She's the embodiment of truth in a world that runs on necessary fictions, and that makes her powerful but fundamentally alienated from the compromises that define human morality. Green Lantern's willpower dependency. The Green Lantern ring is powered by willpower, which sounds empowering until you consider what it actually means. Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, and every other Green Lantern must maintain absolute mental focus to use their ring effectively. The constructs they create, energy shields, giant hammers, fighter jets, anything they can imagine, exist only as long as they maintain concentration. Distraction, doubt, or fear weakens the constructs. This means a Green Lantern in combat is simultaneously fighting an enemy and fighting their own mind, forcing themselves to maintain belief in their constructs while under attack. If they hesitate, their shield fails. If they doubt, their weapon disappears. The ring amplifies willpower, but also makes the user's mental state a vulnerability. Sinestro exploited this constantly, using fear to undermine Green Lantern constructs by making his opponents doubt themselves. The ring also requires constant mental effort. Unlike Superman, who's always strong, or Wonder Woman, who's always skilled, a Green Lantern must actively focus to use their power, which is mentally exhausting. Extended battles drain them not physically but psychologically, and if their will breaks, they're defenseless. The Guardians of the Universe built this limitation intentionally, reasoning that willpower-based constructs would prevent abuse. But it also means Green Lanterns are only as strong as their mental health. Depression, trauma, anxiety, all of these reduce their effectiveness. Hal Jordan became Parallax after the destruction of Coast City broke his will, and the ring, which had made him a hero, amplified his grief into universe-threatening power. The ring doesn't corrupt, it amplifies whatever the user feels most strongly, which means it's a weapon that turns your emotional state into reality, for better or worse. Deadpool's healing factor. Wade Wilson's healing factor makes him effectively unkillable, regenerating from injuries that would destroy anyone else, including being reduced to a skeleton or blown apart completely. But the healing factor isn't a gift, it's torture. The cancer that was killing Wade before Weapon X experimentation is still in his body, constantly trying to kill him while the healing factor constantly fights it. This creates a state where Wade is always both dying of cancer and healing from cancer simultaneously, every cell in his body fighting a civil war that never ends. The pain is constant and excruciating. Deadpool's jokes, fourth wall breaks, and manic behavior aren't just personality, they're coping mechanisms for someone in perpetual agony. He can't die, which sounds like immortality until you consider what it means. He's watched everyone he's ever loved age and die while he remains trapped in a scarred, pain-racked body. His healing factor also affects his brain, constantly repairing damage but also preventing his mind from forming stable neural pathways. This contributes to his mental instability and fragmented sense of identity. He's been decapitated, dismembered, and incinerated, and he regenerated from all of it. But every regeneration is re-experiencing the trauma of the injury. When his head was cut off, he was conscious during the entire regrowth process, feeling his skull reforming, his brain rebuilding, his eyes regenerating. The healing factor doesn't include anesthesia. It just forces his body to survive injuries that should kill him, keeping him conscious and aware through biological processes that were never meant to be experienced. Deadpool is functionally immortal, which means he'll outlive everyone, watch the universe age, and potentially survive until heat death, trapped in a body that won't let him die even if he wants to. Superman's kryptonite vulnerability. Superman is nearly invulnerable, but kryptonite, fragments of his destroyed homeworld, weakens and kills him. The symbolic cost is profound. The only thing that can hurt Superman is a literal piece of his home. He's the last son of Krypton, and Krypton's remains are poison to him, which creates a mythology where his origin is his weakness. He can never return home, and pieces of his home actively try to kill him. This extends to his identity as an alien who looks human. Superman must constantly perform humanity while knowing he'll never actually be human. He's Kal-El pretending to be Clark Kent, and the performance requires constant vigilance. He must hold back in every interaction, never shake hands too firmly, never move too fast, never react with his full speed, because doing so would reveal him. This means Superman is never completely relaxed, never fully himself. Even with Lois Lane or his parents, he's moderating his strength, consciously limiting his abilities to avoid breaking things or hurting people. The emotional cost is that Superman lives between two identities, neither of which is complete. As Clark Kent, he's pretending to be weaker and less capable than he is. As Superman, he's an alien god trying to protect humanity, while knowing he'll never truly be one of them. Kryptonite doesn't just weaken him physically, it represents the impossibility of escaping his origin. He can save the world, but he can't save Krypton. He can protect humanity, but he'll never be human. And the fragments of his homeworld, the only connection he has to his birth culture, are the one thing guaranteed to kill him. His greatest strength, being Kryptonian, is inseparable from his greatest vulnerability. Conclusion. Every superpower examined reveals the same truth. Abilities that seem like blessings carry costs that define the wielder's entire existence. These costs aren't incidental, they're fundamental to who these characters are. The powers shape their lives, relationships, and identities in ways that can't be separated from their heroism or villainy. Now, to you, which superpower cost is the most tragic? And would you accept any of these abilities knowing what they'd take from you? Comment down below as you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more comic-loving videos like this.